A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. If you need a website or a domain, go to squarespace.com/James for 10% off your first purchase. As many of you will know, I talk incredible levels of nonsense on this channel. Always have. Well, there's no good way of saying this, folks, so I'll just come out and say it. I'm wearing Crocs. For the past 2 or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, something around there, I feel like it's new tier unlocked in that regard. I used to fear the process of aging, but I'm quite enjoying myself, actually. And I think there will probably come a point where I can no longer blame this new level of nonsense on having a new baby. But I think Arthur being 9 weeks old, I can still just about get away with it. But yeah, I've been out shooting loads over the past number of weeks, and it's been a lot of fun. I can just hear my time machine on my laptop. I'm going to turn that off. Where was I? Yeah, I've been out shooting loads over the past few weeks, and it's been awesome. At times I've been out just shooting for shooting's sake, which has been lovely. Other times I've been scouting for videos later this year. And there have also been times where I've been out attempting to make a video, and each time I've done that, I've just struggled to form a sentence and talk about anything meaningful, which has been really, really frustrating. But I slept amazingly last night. I had 7 hours sleep. So what I thought I'd do today is try and capitalise on that and try and talk about all the stuff that I've been attempting to talk about over the past couple of weeks and haven't been able to. So that's what this video is. Starting with lenses. So if you've been on my gear page on my website of late, you might have noticed that in each of the systems that I use, I've got a little zoom that I use. So in the Sony, it's the 24-50 f2.8, and on the Fuji, it's the 35-70. But I've also got, does this qualify as a pancake lens? I don't know. But this for the Sony is the 40mm f2.5. And on the Fuji, I've got the 50mm f3.5. And on paper, these primes look a little bit redundant. I mean, the Sony, for instance, is an f2.5 lens, and it's a focal length which is covered in this f2.8 zoom. So I'm not exactly using this for light gathering capabilities. Now, it is smaller than the zoom, but the reason I love this zoom is that it's as small as a fast prime. And so the difference really when it's on the body is meaningless to me in terms of size and weight. And it's a similar story on the Fuji system. In the past year or so, between that 24-50 and the 35-70 on the Fuji, I have found 2 zoom lenses that I absolutely love. And so you sort of think to yourself, well, why would you also have a prime that's not particularly fast? And while it is smaller than the zooms, it's not by so much that it actually matters to me out in the field. And really the short answer is practice. I have many weaknesses as a photographer, but one of my major weaknesses is that I don't zoom with my feet as much as I should when I'm using a zoom. And if you're new to photography, perhaps you haven't heard the term zoom with your feet, but it's often listed as a benefit or really a feature of shooting with primes, because you can't change the field of view with the lens because it's fixed. And so to change how much of your scene you're capturing, you need to move backwards and forwards with your body. The thing is, zooming with your feet, and zooming with a lens barrel offers a completely different result. And if you're zooming with a lens barrel, yes, you'll be changing how much stuff you're featuring in your frame. But ultimately, if you're shooting, for example, a beach groin or the beacon at the end of a beach groin, regardless of the focal length, the beacon and its relationship to the horizon in this case will stay the same. But if you're zooming with your feet and you walk 50 yards backwards and slightly uphill, the beacon will disappear underneath the horizon. So zooming with your feet, zooming with a lens, they offer very different results. And by shooting with a prime every now and then, I'm forced to zoom with my feet much more than I do with a zoom because I'm lazy. And my hope is that that encourages me to think about zooming with my feet more when I'm next using a zoom, and to really sort of think about all the options I have open to me. That's the theory. But yeah, to be honest, such is my love of these zooms that I've acquired in the past year or so that I'm really using primes a lot less than I probably should be for practice, because these are just such fantastic lenses. They're not the sharpest lenses on the market, they're not the most versatile, they're not the fastest, but they fit the focal lengths that I want to shoot at perfectly, and they fit the way I want to work perfectly. So yeah, I really, really love both of these lenses. Next thing I wanted to talk about, straps. About a year and a half ago, something like that, a guy called Matt at Matt's Leather Goods made me a strap. He offered to send me a strap. I thought that was very kind. And he made me this one, which is perfect for when I just want to hang, preferably a light camera, around my neck like this. And I loved having a leather strap so much that I asked him to design an adjustable leather strap for me. I love adjustable straps for reasons that I'll come to, but this is the first version of what he made for me, and we're currently trying to think about how to improve it. But the reason I love adjustable straps is that, well, I like adjustment. So sometimes I like to have my camera sort of round my neck, like this, maybe a bit further up. Other times I like to secure my camera to my wrist, so I'll do this. Probably needs to be a bit shorter for doing that, actually. And other times I like to have my camera across my body, mainly for stabilisation when I'm shooting, particularly shooting video. And essentially having a strap underneath your arm like this works really brilliantly as a stabiliser. But you need to adjust the length based on how many layers you've got on. So in summer, I might have it at this length, but if I've got 2 jackets on in winter, I might need it to be 3 or 4 inches longer. And so yeah, adjustable straps work great. This one is not leather, this is a Peak Design leash, which is the thinnest strap that they make. I've also got a thicker one. Where's a thicker one? Yeah, this one I've had for years. This is more like a seat belt, to be honest, and overkill, I think, unless you're shooting with like a 600mm prime or something. But yeah, the thin ones I really like, except for the connectors that it comes with. These are the quick release connectors that attach to the anchors that Peak Design straps are famous for. And they're great if you need quick release on your straps, but I don't. They just get in the way for me. So I hacked those off with my pliers, and instead I've just hooked the strap to standard key rings. And that works much better for me, actually. So yeah, that's straps. But hopefully at some point I'll have a leather one that works like this. And if I do, I'll let you know. I'll put the camera down, I need to pick it back up again. As you'll have noticed in recent videos, I'm still really, really enjoying letterbox crops. And one of the best things about the Fuji is that you can shoot at 65 by 24. I am finding it a bit of a limited feature though, and I have some suggestions for the software engineers. These can't be difficult to implement. I'm sure all software engineers love it when people who aren't software engineers suggest that it should be easy to implement certain things. Here goes. First thing I'd like to see is being able to customize what aspect ratios you're shooting at. I'm really enjoying 2:1 at the moment, and I'd love to be able to set 2:1 in this camera. How hard can that be to do? Second thing I'd like to see is an opacity slider for everything that's outside the frame that you're shooting in. The Hasselblad system does this brilliantly, and essentially it just means that you can still see what's outside of the frame even when you're shooting a crop. And that's very, very useful. And thirdly, sort of on that topic, the problem I've found with shooting, say for example 65 by 24, is that if I do so and then after the fact I decide that actually for that scene I'd prefer to see a 3:2 or a 4:3, I can do that because I'm shooting raw and the camera saves the entire image, but I end up with a shot that just has the subject right in the middle of the frame because that's where the crop appears on the camera. And it might have been the case that I'd have preferred the subject at the bottom of the frame or at the top of the frame. And that would be perfectly possible if I was able to move where in the frame the crop happened on the camera, if that makes sense. So yeah, 3 changes I'd like to see to improve or add upon the crop functionality in this camera and all cameras. That would be amazing to see in every camera. Will it happen? Probably not. And I don't understand why. Surely that's not difficult. Also, in my last video where I was talking about the Nikon ZF, I mentioned that that camera wasn't for me predominantly because I love to shoot with and use custom modes and a custom dial on my cameras and that camera didn't have one. I then got lots of questions asking what I set my custom dials to, which I think is a bit of a boring topic, to be honest, but I'll put it up on the screen now, and you can freeze the frame and study this should you wish to. Last thing about gear, I promise. Another major weakness of mine as a photographer is that I chimp a lot. And if you're new to photography, you might not have heard that term. Basically, it applies to taking a photo and then wanting to look at that photo immediately. And meanwhile, the scene is still happening in front of you, and you might miss other shots as a result of looking at the shot you've taken just before. So to try and combat that recently, I have turned off auto review on all of my cameras. So the photo that I've just taken no longer comes up for me to review, and that's a big help. I'm also trying to never press the play button when I'm out in the field. I'm trying to sort of keep the, what would be the word, the excitement and the joy of looking at my photos for when I get back home and I import them into Lightroom. And I used to deal quite a lot in absolutes. I used to say things to myself like, you can never look at your photos ever again out in the field. But I don't know, as I get older I do that less. And I say to myself things like, you can just try and not look at your photos when you're out in the field. So I'm sure I still will, but I'm trying to do less of it because, yeah, chimping is not a good habit. And it's one that I suffer with, I would say. Another thing that I've been wanting to talk about on this channel for a while and have failed to do so, I don't watch that much photography YouTube, which is A, sad because I've got lots of friends who make photography YouTube videos and I'd love to watch them, but B, it's entirely intentional because I have this fear that if I watch other people's photography videos, their sort of style, what they're shooting, how they're shooting, what they're talking about, that will sort of seep into my videos, which is A, bad form. If you're copying either intentionally or not, I think it's bad form. But B, I think it wouldn't be healthy for this channel. I think from what I can see on YouTube, originality is key to longevity, I think. Anyway, in the last couple of months, since Arthur was born, I've had a lot of time with him sort of asleep on me and me watching YouTube. And I have failed miserably to avoid watching Nick Carver's videos in particular. And I'm sure many of you know of Nick and his videos. He seems like a fantastic guy. I don't know him. I just watch his videos. He's a really good presenter and a great photographer, in my opinion, too. But the thing that I really, really love about his channel, all that aside, is that he pays so much respect to the process and also to his subjects. I mean, he's clearly very, very diligent about the research that he does for his photography and his subjects. And then when he's out in the field, he seems very sort of cognizant of his subject and very present in the process. And then even after the fact, I mean, I watched a video the other day from a series that he does called Dissecting a Photo, and it was a 45-minute video of him talking about one photo. And I was gripped by the entire thing. And it got me thinking that that is just the opposite of my channel in so many ways. You know, often I'll take a photo that I feel really proud of and really connected to, but I'll show like a bit of B-roll before it, and then I'll show the photo for 5 seconds, and then I move on, and I never really return to it or discuss it all that often. And watching Nick's channel has made me think that I should maybe do more of that and pay the subject and the scene and the process a bit more respect. So yes, starting soon will be my new series called Dissecting a Photo. That's a joke, obviously. I'm not just going to rip Nick off after talking about how I actively don't want to copy people. But his channel has made me think about stuff going forward, particularly ahead of me starting to travel again later this year. So yeah, that's been interesting. And definitely go and check out Nick's channel if you haven't seen it before. And then another thing that I've been thinking about quite a lot recently is something Rory Sutherland said. If you don't know him, he's like an advertising guru. And he was asked, I can't even remember the video or the podcast or wherever I heard it, but he was asked about one of the best things or best piece of advice for wanting to get into a career in advertising. And he said something I found really interesting. He said that basically, if you were to sit in a cafe and just sort of observe the world and watch the world go by and watch how people interact with the world, it would make you better at advertising. And that's not true of lots of jobs. You know, if you work in insurance, you can't just sit in a cafe and just watch people and get better at your job. Same thing if you're an electrician. But I think it's also true of photography. I think you can get better at photography by just sort of sitting around and watching the world go by and watching how light falls on the world and watching what people do in the world. Yeah, I thought that was a really profound and interesting observation. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently and I found it interesting, so I thought I'd share it. Struggled to share it over the past couple of weeks, as I said, but yeah, seem to have got it out of my mouth this time. So yeah, there we have it. Bit of a jumble of a video, this one, but hopefully it's been interesting, and thank you very much for watching. I doubt this one will get 100,000 views, but thank you also to the sponsor of this week's video, Squarespace. As I mentioned recently, I have just updated my print store on my Squarespace website, and going forward I'm going to be adding one print a month into my print store. For the first month that it's available, that print will be available at half price. I'm going to start with this one that I shot in France back in February, and so if you're interested you can pick up that print, as I say, for half price for the next month, or until they sell out. They're limited, so yeah, if you want one, it's on my Squarespace website. And if you're interested in selling prints or selling books or presets, whatever it might be, Squarespace is a fantastic solution for it, alongside hosting blogs, newsletters, and of course, your portfolio. Squarespace has all the tools you need to build a professional looking website, even if you don't know a single line of code like me. And I've used Squarespace for the past 7 or 8 years at least, and it's become integral to my business, so I couldn't recommend it more. And if you would like to start a free trial with Squarespace, you can do so by going to squarespace.com. And after that, if you'd like to make a purchase, just go to squarespace.com/James to get 10% off your first purchase. And a big thank you to Squarespace for their continued support, and to you for your continued support. And yeah, I will endeavour to keep my nonsense in check. It'll always be there, but sometimes I do need to put the reins on it, I think. We'll see how I go. Thanks for watching.